on the topic Big Data Analytics in Tax Administration. The countries involved for the presentations are Indonesia, Iran, and Iraq. Without further ado, I now invite the moderator, Mr. Abdullah Diagne, the presenters, Mr. Iwan Juniardi, Mr. Morteza Molanaza, and Ms. Najiha Abbas Ali Al-Hafaji to take their places on stage. Dr. Aidil Munim Abdul Razik and Mr. Muhammad Husni Muhammad Noor, please take your places at the spot designated for rapporteurs. Thank you. In the interest of time and to ensure the smooth running of the conference, please be reminded that the time allocated for this session is 1 hour and 30 minutes. The first bell will be rung once, 3 minutes before the time ends, and the bell will be rung twice when time is up. Ladies and gentlemen, I now hand over the session to the moderator.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Je voudrais, à l'entame de mon propos, réitérer nos remerciements.
I would like to, before I start my talk, to thank Malaysia for the warm welcome which has been extended to my delegation, and also to repeat the excuses from Monsieur, who unfortunately is unable to be with us because of a death in his immediate family. He really wanted to pass on to you certain things before we did our work, and I think that I will be able to make the presentation that we did this morning. We are on the correct route, and we will continue this afternoon with 3 more presentations which will be in the same line of the topic that we have started as the main topic, the analysis of big data within tax administration. We will go right to the end of 1 hour and 50 minutes of each 15 minutes of presentation, followed by exchanges, 45 minutes of discussion and presentation. The first presentation will be made by our colleagues from Indonesia. Iwan Junardi from the Directorate General of Taxes in Indonesia on the implementation of big data in the Directorate General of Taxes in the Republic of Indonesia. The second presentation will be made by Mr. Morteza Molanaza, the Director General of the Tax Administration, National Figure of Iran, who will present the Iranian experience of cross-reference data, and finally on the collection of information from Madame Najiha Abbas Ali Al-Hafaji from Iraq on declarations and informations and the reality and its influence on tax performance in Iraq. without any further ado, I will pass the word, first of all, to the first talker, Mr. Iwan Junardi.
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I know this is the best moment because this is afternoon. I know this is the best moment to sleep. And then, so I would like to convey this presentation not too serious. Okay? And in this opportunity, I would like to share my experience engaging with Miss Big Data. Actually, I was introduced to Miss Big Data since December 2014, the end of 2014. It's not long ago. But there is some circumstance that I have to pursue Miss Big Data to be my fiancée as soon as possible. Because this is what the circumstances I have to address. Okay. In Indonesia, in history of Indonesia taxations, there's a long time ago we made the revenue, the target, but most of them is missed the target, and then the tax ratio is always remaining stable, not increase. So this is very unwanted situation. In the other hand, we still have a huge tax potential because we have more than 18,000 islands. We have more than 250 million populations. Thank you. And we believe that there still be more than 44 million people and corporations is still underground economy that we have to catch up. So with these situations, I believe that proposing the Miss Big Data would make my futures look bright ahead. So that's why I pursue this Big Data. Even though I was introduced in December 2014, I proposed Miss Big Data in February 2015. And also, the circumstance that I have to face is I don't have any staff. The lack of number of my employees to look after the taxpayers. And since last years, we also dealing with the very, very huge data, 1.1 billion records of internal data per year. And then we receive 63 different agencies' data and social media data with no single ID and unstandardized data. We don't have a standardized address. We don't have a standardized name. So with these situations, so I have to pursue this Big Data. And as a business model, as usual tax administrations, in Digitex also developed the business model. We call it the compliance mix. The purpose is we have to reduce tax gap and optimize collection by giving excellent services and equal treatment or fair enforcement by using the data. In services, providing the services, we would like to making tax compliance easier. We would like to use the big data to increase, to improve our services. We already developed the e-channel. We already developed the e-payment. And we also want to develop the pre-filled tax proposal information based on the data we have. So we need to deal with the big data. And in enforcement, of course, we want to audit, even the massive audit, all the data comes to Digitex, all the return of the taxpayers. We want to make it audited. So with the very small resources, we can achieve the big job. So we need a big data. And this is the purpose of implementations: collecting data from various sources, both internal and externals, identification, investigation, and escalate the tax revenue potential. And we want to implement a kind of management information system that has a single case management and system of predictive analytics based on risk assessment. We call it as CRM. CRM means compliant risk management. The taxpayer will be segmented on the level of risk and the level of fiscal importance. We have data internal, we have a payment data, we have a withholding slip, we have invoice, e-tax invoice. We already implement the e-tax invoice. Since 1st of July 2016, we have across the nations implement the e-tax invoice. And then we have data from tax returns. We have data credit card from the bank. We have a national ID, we have security, and we have data from custom. But all the data seems has a very low data integrity. So I propose Miss Big Data with very small ring. In February 2015, I dare to propose Miss Big Data with only 10 PC with i7 Intel processor, and each processor has storage capacity of 1 terabyte and 6 gigabyte RAM. So the capacity of total capacity of 10 terabyte and 80 gigabyte RAM in total. And I don't have money at that time because I'm still single, don't have a, so I use open source. I don't want to make a big data with the very high cost. And I use the Hadoop version, also open source. We developed by internal sources. And we also use for the RDBMS open source. But amazing, with these small infrastructures, I can accelerate the process of matching data 100 times compared to odd infrastructures or big infrastructures. So a small step for a better, larger data management. And after I prove that this system can enhance our monitoring to the taxpayers. So since December 2015, we buy the real Miss Big Data. Now we have a 500 terabyte used, Hadoop 300 terabyte, and RDBMS 200 terabyte, with the memory 2000 gigabyte. And also, we want to use in data virtualization process, so it 1,000 times than before. And now we currently administer approximately more than 8 billion records to be administered, to be processed. This is the current state. And what is the model that we choose to implement the big data? I use the Teradata model. We use the unified data architecture, which is, we have a 3 data gathering, data platform, integrated data warehouse, and discovery platform. The resources can be from ERP, internal data, web and social, and text mining. And also, the purpose is the analytics can be used as marketing, applications, business intelligence, data mining, math and stats, and languages. And who will have a benefit from this big data analytics is marketing executive, of course, like a PR and customer partners, frontline workers, business analysts, data scientists and engineers, and of course the auditor. And this is the infrastructure of big data that we have right now, and I'm still struggling with develop this unified data architecture. Next stage, we want to integrate all the existing application into integrated information system, which serve as a tax intelligence center. We want to have a tax intelligence center that can produce the big data analytics. And the tax services, so services will be made wider and easier so that the data collection activities can be held more effectively. A system of predictive analytics based on risk assessment and self-service business intelligence will continue to be developed, which is in turn expected to increase the tax revenue. So we want to develop like a business intelligence, self-service business intelligence, self-service business predictive analytics. We have more than 300 branches. So I just provide the data so they can, every branches can manage the data by their own, and they can make like self-service BI and self-service predictive analytics. That's the purpose of the architecture that we built this year. And with the very small infrastructure that I have told before, we have a case study. It's not a huge, but it's okay. We can increase the revenue maybe 2 or 3% with this case. What kind of case? It's like this. Several questions that can be answered by big data analytics. This is a real story. This is a true story that we have experienced last year. What would DGT do if new company ownership structures? We, company, can own a share of other company which recorded in form PPH 1771-6A. It means that corporate income tax return. And then from reporting perspective can be identified how many company recorded in that tax return data. So what inside that can be discovered further? So we further that DGT found more than 1,200 cases. And then discovery, this is the result. Whether company owned or owned by a suspected fraud company. So the fraud anticipated on company who ownership relation with the suspected fraud company. This is the result. And also, we can also trace the parent subsidiary shareholding to look for correlation of association arising therein in transfer pricing and fraudulent modus. And we also have the company sold their asset or share ownership but didn't experience significant increase on their income. The left side is they report the income, but the right side, they didn't report income. So we can early detection to indicate unreported income. And this is transaction between company. We can also use the relationship between company. We can make a suspect. Big data analytics can find relation between company who form triangle or rectangle by the connected transaction. With the yellow one, we can assume that they're a fraudulent there. Which company that have connection with fraud suspect company extend the debt audit to the connected company? And the second, is there any company who have been connected with 3 other companies with different industry? Indication of fictitious transaction between the company. Fixie, fake invoice. This is, we have to dig further. And then what can we find if we can visualize transaction between company? Data are taken from transaction between company. I have a VAT, we use a VAT, from VAT input and output VAT. Business group of food industry, this is only a small group of industry. In year 2011, there are 1 million more of transaction from 400 more companies. So this is not the Star Wars. This is a transaction between company with digging further in input VAT and output VAT. Only in one sector. So we can dig more transfer pricing indication here. Big data can dig up some interdata correlation, especially for transfer pricing prevention. This transaction pool could be mapped, clarifying the transfer pricing indication. And then what other interesting things can be done? So now we have a project, and I believe we can increase our revenue with the new infrastructures. Early detection on transfer pricing with additional data of overseas transactions and detail of sold goods item. Equalization of salary data between the reported salary to identify the difference. Indication of profit manipulation by identifying uncommon increase or decrease to profit from year to year. Detection possibility of company to have fraud based on their relation with fraud suspected company or uncommon. Detection the possibility of company to have a fraud based on similar pattern with fraud suspected company. So I think the end, I'd like to conclude that analysis process by the big data is effective to speed up the achievement of GT target. Big data is relatively fast, accurate, and reliable when used in analysis process. With its capability to recognize pattern, big data can reveal more about the tax fraud, tax avoidance indication. From the standpoint of MIS, big data is an example of relevant efforts in accelerating the fulfillment of key objectives. That's all my presentation. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Merci, chers collègues, pour cette présentation très claire. Nous allons donner maintenant la parole à Monsieur Morteza Molanazar de la République d'Iran, qui va nous faire une présentation sur l'expérience iranienne de l'analyse des données croisées.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Dear Mr. Moderator, Mr. John, high-level delegation members, dear brothers and sisters from Islamic countries' tax administrations. Thank you for trying to listen to me after the lunch. With the due permission from Mr. Taghavinejad, the Iranian National Tax Administration President, it's an honor and my pleasure to present the article regarding the big data, what's currently happening in our tax administration, INTA, in the 13th ATAIC Technical Conference here in Malaysia. And I would like to use this opportunity and express our sincere thankfulness towards the Malaysian hosts for their hospitality and all their arrangements, thoughtful arrangements. After listening to our colleague, Mr. Iwan Junardi from Indonesia, regarding the next generation of data analysis, we are coming back to the current generation of data analysis in our country. And I would also like to apologize on behalf of Mr. Arya, Mr. Engineer Ani Arya, who is the director of the Iranian National Tax Administration ICT Center and Tax Administration Reform Program, TARA, who is the one who prepared this presentation and was planned to present it here today. Unfortunately, due to the workload of negotiations and other issues, he couldn't be with us today. In this presentation, our experience in INTA regarding the big data analysis during the recent years will be introduced. At the outset, we will start to see the former status of INTA in this area. Then we will look at the necessary infrastructure which was required and therefore prepared for the process of large data analysis. In the third upcoming slide, actually slide number 5, the current sources of tax administration necessary information that INTA has recently gained access to is being listed. Later, we will review the major components involved in collection, storing, and processing of data in the Iranian overall solution implemented for the process of big data analysis. The general workflow of these components will be presented using a flowchart. The manner of processing this gathered information at the time being is our next topic. And finally, I will list you our future plan action to complete the mentioned solution. If we want to have a look at the former status, it's not too bad to have a background of what situation we had before the starting of the Tax Administration Reform and Automation TARA. I have heard that TARA is the name of girls in some countries like Australia. If TARA was a girl, she was 10 or 12 years now. The TARA program, which we are almost reaching the end of it, the end of implementation, hopefully during February this year, we have promised to finalize the implementation of this TARA program. Before the TARA implementation, our status included non-integrated tax system for a single tax type. That is, for example, for unincorporated businesses taxation, we had a system which was totally separate with the system of companies and other taxation systems. Or single tax functions were quite separate, like objection and appeals, registration, everything was dealt with quite separately in different separate systems. And local installation of systems in each and every tax office building, and paper-based collection of taxpayers' information through tax returns, for example, or quarterly financial transactions. We didn't have external data sources, or we had few external data sources, and we didn't have online collection to those few data sources, external data sources. And we didn't have a risk analysis. Traditionally, in our country, in our tax administration, all the tax returns used to be audited one by one. And we didn't have online system-based information of risk area to be passed to tax auditors. And we began to see that we need some new infrastructure. The infrastructure which we prepared to implement our new total solution for tax administration required process of the large data. Our planned and almost completed IT infrastructure includes nowadays powerful data center with backups, wide area network implementation across more than 650 buildings throughout the country, connecting tax offices, software based on a powerful database management system, centralized system architecture design, external data sources connection and extranets, risk analysis tools, effective data distribution systems. And here we want to have a look at the current sources of information. Nowadays, we have an internal portal for taxpayer services, which includes the information regarding from taxpayer registration, with the validation process, of course, the taxpayers' tax returns, tax payments information, quarterly purchases, sales, contracts, and transaction reports, monthly salary tax lists, and government and non-government third-party information sources from customs, from banks, from business work permissions issued by different state organizations, bank business loans, for example, and government expenditure information. And some major components involved in a collection, storing, and processing of data. We have an internet portal for taxpayer services where they go, they submit their tax returns, complete and submit their tax returns. They submit their transaction information quarterly there. And we have a core centralized ITS system, integrated tax system. We have taxpayers' data from different resources collection database. We have online connection with external data sources. We have data warehouse with huge data stored there. And we have taxpayers' risk analysis module. And with this diagram, we can have a look at the actual process. First of all, we gather the taxpayers' provided information through internet-based portal. We do the processing of taxpayers' information through the internal centralized core integrated tax administration system. And we carry out the collection of taxpayers' information from external third parties. And as you see, we're moving the taxpayers' internal and externally gathered information to the centralized data warehouse. And then using the data warehouse information for a calculation of the taxpayers' risk and selection for audit. Then we provide the tax auditors with the information of the taxpayers on the main risk areas of single taxpayers or groups of taxpayers in specific industries. Then, based on the earlier mentioned general workflow, the analysis methods, and the way we make use of the gathered information regarding the taxpayers can be listed as you see here. First of all, we apply our risk rules or criteria for the selection of the risky taxpayers. And we weight the risk criteria, that is, we rate them from number 1 to 10, for example. And then we compare and contrast the level of risk of different taxpayers or different industries of taxpayers. And then we select taxpayers, highly risky taxpayers for tax audit, subsequent tax audits. And we extract the information regarding the taxpayers' risk areas. And also we extract the non-filers, or those taxpayers who are not compliant. And finally we carry out the selection and passing risk areas information to tax auditors. And of course, these were the our success areas. It's quite clear that we have some areas where we need further developments. These are components of our system which have not fully completed yet and not fully implemented yet. Our near future planned actions, which we are under execution now, include expansion of external data connection and data sources, upgrading and fine-tuning of risk rules and their rating or weighting, expanding the connection of major components of the overall system, expansion of the integrated system versus the old non-integrated legacy systems, and electronic correspondence of tax administration to taxpayers, and fine-tuning of workflows and system. At the end, I would like to thank you for your patience and attention to our presentation. We wish the best and full success for our brother Islamic countries in all areas of life and work, including the effective processing of big data in the effective tax administration. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh.
Merci, chers collègues, pour cette brillante présentation. Je vais donner maintenant la parole à Madame Nahija Abbas Ali Al-Hafaj.
Before I begin, I would like to thank Malaysia
Flow. Yeah, Arabic flow.
there wasn't a role for taxes in the old system in Iraq. Taxes were a small part of the GDP. From 1980 to 1999. Petroleum obviously was the bulk percentage of GMP, and taxes did not have an important role in our economy then. But because of the lowering of the oil prices, the government has tried to develop the tax system. I'm going to give you an idea about the tax system in Iraq. You can see the following hierarchy. We're talking about direct and indirect taxes. Direct taxes are related to income tax, which also you have corporate profits and real estate profits, and also the taxes, the profits that come from petroleum, which is about 35%. Then the other part of the direct taxes are taxes on capital. Indirect taxes include custom tax, production tax. Lately, in 2015, we also have taxes on cell phones. There are many different groups that are connected to the tax administration. Of course, the legislative authority. They are the ones who draft the laws and regulations and make taxes obligatory. Then you have the executive authority in order to implement those regulations and laws. Thirdly, the taxpayers, whether they are real people or virtual people. The tax administration collects its information and data from different sources. The main one, of course, is the taxpayer who divulges information about their account, individuals or companies, and government institutions also. There's law number 28, which requires all different institutions to provide information concerning taxes. And the authorities are supposed to ascertain the truthfulness of this information and the sources. And also they can stop the different transactions that are related to the taxes until taxes are paid. Also, it gives the authorities to take a certain percentage, not beyond 10%, that until everyone pays the taxes that are due. This law gave us a very good database of information about contracts, pledges, and lists, purchase lists, vendors, information with regards to contractors, customs, and also data with regards to imports. And it obligates the unions to give us all the required data and information. Now we have a lot of data and information, but how do we administer these data? Of course, there's a difference between data and information. The data and information, there was a lot of data and information, and it wasn't easy to process. As I mentioned, the General Commission for Taxes, the taxes did not play an important role in the economy then, so the state wasn't really concerned at the time. There were very special systems that they used to use, and they are quite modest in means. The most important systems in dealing and analyzing these data is with regards to income tax. The other system is corporate taxes, where information is registered and all of the resources of the company are mentioned, and it's given a specific tax ID. And then there's the system with regards to the contracts and the pledges and the imports. Then there's the customs system, which collects all the information from the customs unit. Of the most important challenges we face, that there isn't a clear electronic system in order to analyze and process this data in order to benefit the tax administration. The main aim of this presentation I told you a little bit about the General Tax Commission in Iraq. I hope that the ATAIC can have a bigger role than other conferences that we usually meet in annually. I hope that there can be an evaluation for these different tax administrations by state. And then there should be a committee whose ATAIC members can help any undeveloped tax administration. And here at this pulpit, I hope that Iraq can be a case study in order to seek the assistance of the other nations. Thank you.
Merci, chers collègues. C'est sûr que le secrétariat permanent a pris bonne note de ces perspectives que vous avez dégagées et sans doute se fera un plaisir de l'étudier pour pouvoir y donner suite. Donc vous allez convenir avec moi qu'on a eu droit à 3 brillantes présentations et on a même pu économiser sur le temps à peu près de 6 minutes. Donc la première présentation, pour la rappeler, a été faite par M. Iwan Tinyardi de l'Indonésie, qui a posé la problématique de l'implémentation d'un système de gestion de mégadonnées, avec toutes les difficultés qui ont été rencontrées au début avec les problèmes d'intégrité des données. Je crois que ce qui a été surtout frappant dans la présentation, c'est ce qu'il a pu faire avec peu de moyens. Parce que lorsqu'on aborde souvent ces problématiques-là au niveau des administrations, vous ne commencez pas par demander les moyens. Il faut d'abord apporter la preuve qu'il est possible quand même de faire quelque chose à travers le système que l'on va implanter, avant souvent que les moyens ne suivent. Donc je crois que ça a été une belle expérience et il a donné un certain nombre de cas très précis pour lesquels ces mégadonnées ont pu être utilisées pour procéder à des rectifications de base, notamment dans les cas des sociétés liées.
In order to educate the companies and the societies, this presentation done by Iran was a bit classic by explaining Iran is a country where there was no integrated system. So the system was too open and was not interrelated. They were able to then create an integrated system, and this can now help by centralizing and refresh and help the other areas with modules of education analysis, especially in the risk analysis section. With these exchanges between different companies and the government and the private sector, the problem that we're trying to do is to make laws to be careful with the exploitation of the tax system. We will require to put in place lots of strategies to mobilize and be able to keep this development, that it should be sustainable, and to put into place the classic taxation in a society, the taxation for companies, for contracts, customs, etc. Therefore, we have analyzed this from different perspectives and proposed in this level that the administrations can work together and share, so that as what regards to revenue and taxation on revenues, you're able to charge the maximum, obtain the maximum revenue from this taxation system. That means covering all kinds of aspects now. Now I would like to give the word to the delegates so that we can now have some exchanges between us.
Oui.
Hello, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I'm Rosainun from University Technology Mara. In administration, persons administering is very, very important. I have 4 questions. Is there any qualification required in order to expert and champion the big data analysis? Number 2, who or what is the background of your staff doing the big data analytics? Then number 3, as I know from my university, we produce graduates from Bachelor of Accountancy, and quite a number of them are with the Inland Revenue Board of Malaysia. So what is the scenario and the background of the staff involved in your equivalent Inland Revenue Board in your country? And last but not least, moving forward, what would be the qualification that you would recommend for us universities to explore or innovate in order to offer to the public and to the school leavers perhaps? And would you welcome Bachelor of Taxation, maybe in bracket, Big Data Analytics? Merci beaucoup.
Question
for all, please.
Ok. Donc je vais donner la parole à l'Indonésie.
I will answer Indonesia.
Okay, I try to answer your questions. Most of my staff is my bachelor's background is also accountancy, and but they have a interest in IT, and so we have a program to enhance the IT capacity of them, especially the one who interested in IT. So many program in my directorate to improve the capability. And also we try to push to our staff to have a community in internet, in IT, so that that's why they can gather all informations and knowledge from the internet. And the one who delivered the big data analytics in my Digitex is number one is we call it the data scientist. We have a spatial unit. We call it Central Text Analysis, and they consist of master degree from abroad. They have a backgrounds in data scientists, and now we have one of them. So we have a doctoral degree. And for the fourth questions, how can we improve the university? Actually, I myself have a program that we want to be an open organizations. IT Digitex of the Republic of Indonesia, I treat them as an open organization, which means that we want to collaborate with all parties, including partners and principals, and also university, to make to establish the research all together with us. So that's why we develop in next years. We develop we call it Innovation Center, and I suggest the university can also send the students to get a knowledge of the big data. And of course, in the next generations, not only big data we talk about, we have to talk about IoT. We don't have a capacity if we have to move standalone without the collaboration with other institutions. That's why I suggest. And for the first question, I forgot the question. I'm sorry.
Is there any qualification that you need in order to do big data analytics?
Oh, in audit. Yeah, of course. Actually, for auditors, their backgrounds for the auditor itself, we don't need any qualification. As long as the auditors, they pass the exam for auditors, they can use the big data analytics, because the auditors they only use the data. They just execute it. But the data scientists will provide the information from the big data analytics. The data scientists will make like a data modeling, and they try to identify what kind of information that they has to propose in order to help the auditors audit effectively. So the auditor seems like others. Thank you.
Donc, merci. On peut écouter l'expérience.
Thank you. Speak a little bit about the experience of Iraq on the same question.
Regarding the audit work qualifications, it is mentionable that a lot of people have accounting degrees and accounting qualifications for the big data analysis, but some people are genius as far as auditing is concerned. They have an auditing mind. They have quite valuable experience in the tax administration. Regarding the ITC work and big data work, planning, programming, these stories, sometimes you cannot find on the shelf degrees from the universities. You know, that's a combination of tax experts and IT expertise, which sometimes you cannot find both of them on specific people, individuals. IT men sometimes are not interested or highly experienced in tax issues, and vice versa is possible. And we actually have mobilized all the internal and international first-class experts regarding the IT and tax issues in order to make the preliminary and basic planning for our big data system, our ITS, and the TARA program. Then we are using our current assets in the areas of auditing, and we have trained them to work with the IT systems, and they are being currently developed to be fully equipped to use this new IT systems for auditing. That's the problem the other countries like Korea and other highly developed countries have confronted, because it's a very difficult job, because you cannot find individuals who are interested, experienced, and skillful in both areas of IT and taxation. From the universities, we expect them to prepare for us people who are experienced in both areas. I don't know, IT taxation or something like this. A new field of studies may be needed. Okay. Thank you.
So let me add some comment.
Okay.
I myself, I'm not. My background is not IT, but you know, when I was college, the only C is IT major. But after I was introduced to big data, so it's very fun. So I can, you know, increase my ability in IT, and you know, we can discover that before undiscovered. So it is very fun. Thank you.
Okay, merci. Quelqu'un d'autre souhaite prendre la parole?
Thank you very much. Does anybody else want to speak?
Donc, moi, je
So,
vais surtout poser une question
I will above all
concernant,
ask you a question
l'identifiant fiscal unique.
with regard to the unique tax identifier, with regard to data collection.
En principe,
In principle,
obligation est faite
there's an obligation amongst all tax administrations
permet
to have a better collection of data That is the first point. The second point is with regard to the level of integration. There are different administrations who collect the resources. It is true that in certain administrations you follow an Anglo-Saxon model which allows you to manage the taxation in the way you like, and therefore customs and social security are handled separately, and therefore there's no problem with dealing with the different administrations, which is relatively simple. On the other hand, data which can be obtained, in other words, the people who manage water systems, telephones and so on and so forth, are not necessarily integrated. So what is the level of integration between the various administrations in your experience, but also what is the type of identifier that you use in order to succeed in having a unique identification of taxpayers? I'll pass the word on to each of you in turn.
A TIN, taxpayers in identification number, a unique TIN is issued for companies now, and we are on the verge of issuing unique TINs for individuals. Currently, we use their national ID number, which somehow brings about problems for the integration, as you mentioned, and that is different information and data collected regarding every taxpayer is connected to that taxpayer through the TIN, taxpayer identification number, which is unique. And with the information we receive from the bank, as Mr. John formerly mentioned, we needed some regulations and tax in our tax law in order to require different holders of important information for tax issues, such as banks and the customs and the social security organization. We have amended our tax law, which took us something like 5 or 6 years in order to finalize the amendment of the domestic tax law, in order to require the holders of information to provide us online all the information regarding the different taxpayers. And my colleague, Mr. Ali Reza Khanjan, will provide you with the complete explanation regarding the new provisions which require the holders of information to provide us with the important pieces of information. Then all those data collected are added to the taxpayers' data warehouse, and through the ITS and the engines for risk-based auditing, we work and screen out the not highly valuable information through the warehouse, and we get to a database of the information, important information of taxpayers, and our risk engines with the ITS system integrates all those information and selects the risky taxpayers. That's the thing back home that people do in this regard.
Okay, merci.
Thank you. If you would like to hear Iraq on the same point.
For tax reform, sorry, no voice from the source. The tax number for companies working in Iraq, those who work with the government, in addition to that, this program will help the tax administration with regards to the problem of identical or similarity in the names. We are not so far from development, so we have just started with this issue this year, and by the end of this year itself, we will have to conclude our program.
Merci beaucoup. L'Indonésie.
Okay, I agree that before we manage the big data, we have to first to cleanse the data. So we have a long journey in data cleansing because even though we have a international national ID since 2012, but the enforcement to use the single ID in Indonesia is still low. So that's why we also use the big data technology to cleanse the data. We get the data from 63 different sources of data. We set the rule base, and with the similarity of the name and the maybe address, so we cleanse the data and we make sure that that taxpayers. So we have a lot of to do, but of course the data will become cleanser and cleanser after we implement the big data in cleansing the data before the data comes to the data warehouse. Thank you.
Okay, merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much. If nobody else wishes to speak, thank you once again for the various presentations that were made and release the delegates. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Abdullah Diagne, Mr. Iwan
Merci.
Jumari, Mr. Murteza Molanaza, Ms. Najiha Abbas Ali Al-Khafaji. Please remain on stage for a quick photography session. Dr. Adil Monim Abdul Razik and Mr. Muhammad Husni Muhammad Noor, thank you. Let us now give way to the stage preparation for the next session. Ladies and gentlemen, we shall now continue with the final session for today's conference, which is a special presentation on the topic GST, a Malaysian experience. Without further ado, I now invite the speaker, Mr. Faizul Nudin Hashim, to be on stage for the presentation. Can we have a representative from Mauritania and Mr. Said Muhammad Najib Said Nasir to take your places at the spot designated for the rapporteurs. Thank you. In the interest of time and to ensure the smooth running of the conference, please be reminded that the time allocated for this session is 30 minutes. Please be reminded that the time allocated for this session is 30 minutes. The first bell will be rung once, 3 minutes before the time ends, and the bell will be rung twice when the time is up. Ladies and gentlemen, I now hand over the session to the speaker.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.
The prière.
Wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya wal mursalin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Allahumma salli ala sayyidina Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala sayyidina Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala sayyidina Muhammad. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. And a very good evening to everybody.
Bonsoir à tout le monde. Je voudrais remercier les organisateurs de me donner l'opportunité de vous adresser avec cette présentation sur les vécus et les apprentissages de l'introduction de la TVA qui est dans le début de sa application. Ça a commencé le 1er avril de 2015, un an et demi avant.
The implementation of since custom is the authority entrusted by the government to implement the GST, I would like to share with you, the participants of this conference, the experiences and learnings from introducing GST in Malaysia by Royal Malaysian Customs Department. The implementation of GST is part of the government tax reform program to enhance the capability, effectiveness, and transparency of tax administration and management. Ladies and gentlemen, the idea of introducing GST began more than 30 years ago. In fact, 30 years ago, it was started in the late 80s, where there have already been talks about the possibility of introducing VAT for replacing the sales and service tax system which has been implemented since 1970s. In fact, in the past 1989, 1993, and also 1994 budgets, the finance ministers then had already expressed the ideas of the value-added tax, which will be implemented and in the place of sales and service tax. On this occasion, the then finance minister had consistently expressed the need for the government to replace the inefficient sales tax and service tax with a more efficient indirect tax system like value-added tax. Unfortunately, the GST failed to take off on the introduction plans proposed by the Ministry of Finance. One of the reasons that GST was not come into the picture of national economic because the then Prime Minister was of the opinion that GST is a complicated tax system and business community is not ready for the implementation of value-added tax. Thus, GST was put on hold. The idea of introducing GST was reintroduced in September 2004 when it was announced by the then Prime Minister Yang Amat Berhormat Datuk Sri Abdullah Ahmad Badawi in the 2005 budget that the government is proposing to replace the sales and service tax or SST with goods and service tax starting 1st January 2007. After the budget announcement, the taxation review panel was established, consisting of members from the private and public sectors, with the functions to examine and review the country tax system with the objective to incorporate
the value-added tax system. The working committee was also set up under the tax review panel to conduct study and collect information useful for formulating the right GST model for Malaysia. However, on the 22nd of February 2006, the government decided that the implementation of GST will be deferred from 1st January 2007 to a date to be announced later. The postponement does not mean the cancellation of the plan to introduce GST in our tax system, but it merely means that the working committee and private organization would have more time to study and exchange feedback with each other to ensure that a good GST system be developed suitable to the needs and circumstances of Malaysia. On 24th of November 2009, our Prime Minister Yang Amat Berhormat Datuk Seri Najib Tun Razak announced that the GST will be implemented in 2015. Yang Amat Berhormat Datuk Seri Najib Tun Razak announced that GST will be implemented and the GST bill will be tabled in the Parliament. On 24th of December, on 16th of December 2009, the Finance Minister has tabled the GST for the first reading in the Parliament with the intention that GST will be implemented within 2 years, which is in 2011. Again, the government decided to defer the implementation of GST. On 25th of October 2013, Yang Amat Berhormat Datuk Seri Najib Tun Razak announced in the 2014 budget that GST will be introduced in 2015. And a new GST bill was tabled in Parliament, and finally the bill was passed by the Parliament, and the rest is history. Designing the GST model. In formulating the GST model, the Secretariat of the Tax Panel studied the legislation of the following countries: New Zealand, United Kingdom, South Africa, Canada, Singapore, Australia, Thailand, and Indonesia to come up with the GST model. And the panel found out that a common feature in most of VAT or GST implemented in those countries is not to tax a number of important goods and services because of the political, social, economic consideration. These goods and services generally fall into two major categories, which are zero rating and exemptions. Zero rating refers to a situation in which the rate of tax applied to supplies is zero. However, businesses could still claim taxes paid on inputs. Whereas for exemptions, it works quite differently. While tax is not charged on outputs, tax paid on inputs cannot be claimed by businesses. In formulating Malaysian GST model, the government analyzed the exemption and zero rating of basic necessities and critical sectors. Knowing that having less exemption and zero rating of supply means it is easier to convince the critic and the potential of GST system is progressive. On the other hand, having so many exemption and zero rating of supply will result to zero rating and exemption are enjoyed by everybody, by everyone, whether he is rich or poor. And it will create a complexity in accounting, additional compliance costs, and low productivity to the taxpayer. In formulating GST model, and with the intention not to burden the consumer, the government conducted public consultation involving all sectors of the economy, for example, in the manufacturing sector, agriculture, fisheries and mining, transportation sectors, construction, professional body, health and education, and also consumer association. Analysis is done on income and expenditure for different income groups based on the household expenditure survey undertaken by Department of Statistics. The study shows that lower income group spend more than 35% of their total income on food, whereas the higher income group only spend around 8.7%. The survey also reveals that lower income groups spend about 38% of their income on gross rent, fuel and power, whereas on the other hand, higher income groups only spend around 19.5%. In view of this, the government has proposed that supply which will affect the expenditure of lower income group to be zero rated. Nation GST model. The GST rate is set at 6% and we have only one single rate. And the threshold for registration under GST is 500,000 ringgit per annum for all type of businesses. And the government has just decided that to zero rate some of the goods and services. The basis to zero rate this supply is to provide complete relief for GST to the final consumer, especially to the lower income group. So essential food items such as agriculture product, livestock supplies, seafood, poultry, eggs, foodstuff are zero rated. Thus, this will surely benefit the lower income group. In addition to that, the government also decided that the supply of the first 300 units of electricity for domestic usage and also the supply of treated water for domestic usage is also zero rated. In addition to that, exported goods and services will be zero rated so that Malaysian product and services is more competitive abroad. On the exempt supplies, to meet social obligation in order to reduce tax burden to the final consumer, the government decided that certain services are exempted from GST. For example, the domestic transportation, highway toll, funeral, burial and cremation services, private health and private education services, childcare, right to use the land, and also financial services. So those services are in the category of exempt supply where no GST to be imposed, but on the other hand, businesses cannot claim the tax on input. Despite earlier objection of the implementation of GST, GST itself has been a great success. Initially, GST is introduced to replace the sale and service tax, or SST, was not well received by some quarters at the initial stage, but in the end, it became a savior to the revenue contribution to the government income's coffers. The GST has slowly gained acceptance and fared well. No major issues except for some delays in refund in the early part of the implementation. Critical factors for successful implementation of GST. GST has slowly gained acceptance and fared well due to relentless efforts and intensive preparation by the government. Efforts taken implementing GST, Custom Department set up the technical panel unit where this unit will handle the technical issues with regard to GST treatment on a particular supply. And also we provide awareness program. We appointed GST advocates and ambassadors, public acceptance and persuasion programs which were carried out to train public and private non-government organizations or NGOs. We also provide hand-holding programs to businesses. We form a help desk and call center. We provide help desk in all customs offices throughout the country to assist businesses in GST administration. And also we set up call center in custom headquarters to help not only for businesses but also public with regard to any GST matters. We strategize our communication program and having close cooperation with NGOs such as professional bodies, trade association, and consumer association. GST communication program. The target group is the consumer, business, and government. And the data shown there that GST communication program has been done prior to 2014. We have about 4,227 programs for the consumers, 443 programs for the businesses, and also 210 programs for the government sectors. In 2014 to 2015, we intensify our communication program throughout the country where on average there is one program for every consumer in every 3 days and a hand-holding session for businesses in every alternate days. We make use 3 methods of our communication program. The mainstream newspaper by way of advertisement and or editorial column in newspaper. And also we make use of the traditional communication media such as brochure, TV advertisement, radio, newspaper, magazine, talk show, billboard, bunting, and etc. And also we make fully use of the social media such as Facebook, Twitter, blogs, and online media. I think I will skip this this slide. This is just a video with regard to our telecommunication TV commercial. Hand-holding programs. For businesses, we provide hand-holding programs where we cover topics or issues regarding to changes from sales or sales tax and service tax to GST. We provide in-depth training on GST requirements, cash flow impact on businesses, the facilities provided under GST, the application for various facilities under GST. We also provide online training for GST return filing. We also provide hand-holding how to manage the price impact and changes. And also we provide training on system requirement and GST accounting software and also the tax codes. One of the major concerns with regard to GST implementation is that the issue of price increase due to profiteering activity by businesses. To curb this profiteering activity, the government introduced the Price Control and Anti-Profiteering Act, administered by Ministry of Domestic Trade, Cooperation and Consumerism. We also provided shopper's guide for shoppers to help consumer on the effect of price changing, and we provide education and awareness program to consumer so that consumer knows their right and can make rational choice, spend prudently, and report unethical traders to authorities. To help GST registered person and public understanding the GST treatment, Royal Malaysian Customs Department has published industrial and specific guides. To date, we have around 90 guides available in our GST portal, and we also publish booklet on zero-rated goods list. For the purpose of implementation of GST, Customs has taken these measures. With regard to manpower, we recruit more manpower by creating new posts for GST office. We restructure our existing personnel. We provide training to our personnel, and also we set up infrastructures and logistics for GST officers throughout the country. And we also produce our standard operating procedures for the use of our staff. In terms of legislation readiness, we have gazetted GST Act since on the 19th of June 2014, and we have 3 regulations gazetted on 1st July 2014, which are general regulation, advanced ruling, and tribunal regulation. And we also gazetted 8 orders with regard to threshold, rate of tax, government taxable supply, designated area, and tax agent fee. And also 3 orders was gazetted on 13th of October 2004 with regard to zero-rated supply, exempt, and relief supplies. In terms of business support, we have these references available in our GST portal before the GST implementation date. We have 1 general guide, 16 specific guides, and also 55 industry guides. And we also have frequently asked questions FAQ provided for the purpose of consumer, tourists, businesses. And also we provide frequently asked issues, 5 FAI published and uploaded in our GST website. Some of the issues are the last day to issue invoice under service tax or sales tax, issues with regard to goods received free and given away free, and also issues with regard to price display under GST. All this legislation readiness was taken place prior to the date of GST implementation, which is on the 1st April of 2015. And we also have this sundry goods and shoppers guide, which we published on January with regard to sundry goods. The list was printed in the booklet form and uploaded to our GST website. This sundry goods booklet is to assist consumer in identifying the GST treatment on the 1,800 commonly purchased goods. And with regard to Shopper's Guide, it was published by Ministry Trade. It was published by Ministry of Domestic Trade, Consumer on February 1st, 2015. About 2 million copies were distributed throughout Malaysia and uploaded in the KPD and KK website. The price changes were published based on the prices from 6 different zones as follows. Central region, which consists of Selangor, Wilayah Persekutuan, and Negeri Sembilan. Southern region, with regard to Melaka and Johor states. North, covering Kedah, Perlis, Penang, and Perak. East, covering Terengganu, Kelantan, and Pahang, and also for Sabah and Sarawak. There are 500 types of selected goods in the Shopper's Guide. Critical factors for successful implementation of GST. With our intensive communication program, public acceptance towards GST remain encouraging, but there are still some quarters which have not accepted the proposed GST. On Monday, 23rd of March 2015, a group of 150 protesters stormed our Federal Territory Custom headquarters and demanded Custom to provide answers to 106 questions, or they will stay put in the office until government withdraw the GST. Our Federal Customs Territory Director agreed to answer all the 106 questions, provided that the protester move away from our office. Okay? But unfortunately, the protester does not want to move from the office, but demanded that the answer to be provided immediately. Our director then promised that all the answers for 106 questions will be answered within 1 week time. And as promised, Customs provided all the answers to the queries on Friday, 27th of March 2015, which was 4 days later, and uploaded to our Customs GST website for the benefits of all Malaysians. And no other major events happened before the implementation of GST on 1st April 2015. First day blues. These are some of the questions we received by our call center, such as why newspaper is standard rated, why shouldn't it be zero rated, why top-up cards for prepaid card or prepaid card is 10 ringgit and 60 cents now. Previously, it was only 10 ringgit. Why non-registered traders is selling cigarette with price inclusive of GST? Why restaurant charge GST but why no GST ID on the invoices? Why traders issued handwritten invoices? Why services charge has GST? And many other questions. All these questions was answered by our help desk immediately. Okay, this is an example that the issues where the newspaper was charged GST by certain convenience shop. Actually, the newspaper should be zero rated, but because of the glitches in their system, the businesses charge GST on the sales of newspaper. And that company itself already published the apology letters to their customer. The day before GST and the first day, okay, there was an issue from a consumer where if the consumer went to a restaurant in the middle of the night on the 1st April 2015 and he paid the meals before to 12 a.m., the meal will not subject to GST. Whereas if he pays the meal after 12 a.m., the meal is subject to GST. And also some of the issues raised by consumer who lack understanding of GST with regard to purchase from registered person and non-registered person. If you purchase from registered person, the price will be GST, will be subject to GST 6%, whereas if you purchase from non-registered retailer, there's no GST. Even though the government was well prepared for GST introduction, we still experience minor issues. The issues are as the following. Government step to curb profiteering by businesses by amending Price Control and Anti-Profiteering Act is taken advantage by many traders where they intentionally increase the price before January 1st, 2015. Knowingly that the law which prohibits any increment in the net profit margin of goods and services is only enforced for 80 months, 3 months before GST and 50 months after GST, which is between 1st January 2005 until 30th June 2016. With regard to special refund, the government intention to give refund of embedded sales tax on goods held on hand on 1st April is not fully utilized by businesses. only about 2,000 out of 70,000 businesses claim for special refund. Others refuse to claim, resulting the price hike due to embedded tax. Reasons for not claiming because of the incurring additional costs and expenses, cash flow issues, where refund is only given in equal installment over a period of 2 years, and also the fear factor that the application may not be approved because we already set up that only one application can be made by businesses. So these businesses will not take the risk for making an application, fearing that they will make a wrong application. Refund to be paid within 14 working days. IMF already reminded that the government to expedite refund procedure to deal with excess net credit. The possibilities of fraudulent refund claims and often makes tax administration verify all refund claims before approving refund. Thus, refund within 14 working days is not possible at the initial stage of implementation. The main reasons are businesses are bound to make mistakes in the first few returns, and it delays the process as officers need to do verification. And also, false claim and fraudulent claim often happen when a new tax is introduced. Research by KPMG shows that the world average rate for refund of VAT is around 56 days, and our intention to refund within 14 days is quite ambitious. However, the refund percentage improved from 18% to 70% within 9 months. Ideally, under IMF suggestion, there should be a few or no exemption under GST, and zero rating is only limited to export supply only, since exemptions make VAT or GST less efficient and causes more distortion. In addition to that, exemption and zero rating worsen the VAT revenue collection. However, since Malaysia GST model has lots of exemption and zero rating, IMF has suggested that GST should be introduced at higher rates, which is more than 6%. Nevertheless, we stick to 6% as our GST rate, and as Prime Minister mentioned in his 2014 budget speech, the implementation of GST in Malaysia is based on the principle of rakyat first, or people first. Even though the Malaysian GST is not in accordance to IMF suggestion, the Malaysian GST model has benefits all Malaysians. Thank you for your attention. Jazakallahu khairan. I end my presentation with Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you so much, Mr. Faizuddin Hashim. Mr. Faizul, please remain on stage for a quick photography session. Mr. Mauritania and Mr. Syed Muhammad Najib Syed Nasir, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, the time right now is 4:20 p.m., which means we have come to the end of day one of the conference. We wish to thank all the moderators, presenters, speakers, panelists, and delegates for your kind participation in today's conference. Ladies and gentlemen, please leave the SIS headphones on the table and take all your belongings with you, as this hall will be later used for another event after this. Please note that there will be an official dinner tonight hosted here in the Grand Ballroom. All delegates are graciously invited for the dinner, which starts at 8 p.m. I repeat, the official dinner will be held here tonight in the Grand Ballroom at 8 p.m. All delegates are